Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Big League Breakdowns. Today, we are going to talk about the Baltimore Orioles and the struggles that they have had to start the 2025 season. My name is Tyler. Joining me today are sad Orioles fan John, Will, and producer Robert Morrison. And it has been a tough season, to say the least, for the Orioles. Definitely a little bit below expectations, you
Tough
might
start.
say. Tough
Start.
start, of course. And plenty of
Quarter of the
time.
way through the season that you
Plenty,
really didn't want to think about.
plenty of time to turn it around, of course. But it has not been great, and we're gonna kind of just dissect what's been wrong with a team that I think a lot of people might even had, uh, would have had winning the AL this year. So let's get
Not
into
me.
it.
I'm
Not,
smart. I said the
not,
Rays.
not me, but I actually me. And yeah, you were spot on with that Rays pick. Let me tell you. And
I.
I know all the
It's all
Yankees
about that
fans
Tampa Air, baby.
all those Yankees fans are giving us more ammo for what they can say to us. But
And
as
then
you can
when someone
see,
gets hurt, we can say, "I told you so." Sorry for your
right,
loss, but I told you so.
right. Yeah, if you're down there as the Orioles with the Marlins, Pirates, White Sox, and Rockies, you gotta get a grip real quick. Something's wrong. Um, and that's what's happening right now. Also, is that updated? I don't think it is. I think they're 15 and 26
They're
after their
15 and
doubleheader
26 after
today.
the doubleheader.
So,
Yeah.
woo, John,
Nope. No comment. Not right now.
no comment. Will, what's wrong with this team?
Um, I guess what's not wrong. The bullpen's actually doing pretty good overall, and not out of the bullpen. Ryan O'Hearn is fantastic. What's bad? Well, okay. Everything else though, but no, everyone's underperforming. The starting pitching is banged up, and the replacements are pitching horrible. I mean, they have the worst starting pitching ERA in the American League at 5.55 coming into today. The next closest team were the Blue Jays at 4.58. There's a whole run difference. So that's a huge factor. They are not hitting with runners in scoring position. They're hitting under the Mendoza line. Like Adley Rushman is batting barely over 200. Henderson is starting to get back into it, though he's a little under what you would hope for. Mullins started off fantastic and is back to the Cedric Mullins that we're used to from the past couple seasons. So this team needs a major shift in their starting pitching and to at least knock in a few runs to somewhat get back into it. I mean, today is a good example, though, of things just going from bad to worse. When in the second game of the doubleheader, they're up 6-5, Cano's pitching, and he gives up 3 runs, and therefore they then lose 8-6. Like, just things cannot go the Orioles' way right now. And I'm
To
also mad that I didn't predict they would be last place because I really wanted to, and then I chickened out.
gave up that home run to Phillies legend, by the way, Cody Clemens.
Cody Roger Clemens.
Yes. But yes, the batting right now is bad. 26th in team batting average and on base percentage. They have the third highest K rate in the league. You talked about Gunner. While he's starting to pick it up, he's got a 27.7% K rate and only 5 homers. Adley's been really struggling. Mountcastle only has 2 home runs this year. So outside of your big guns, a lot of your supporting cast also not doing as well as you would hope for as well. Tyler O'Neill has come in. Granted, he's actually been better than Santander this year, who's really struggling in Toronto. But he's not doing too great. Westberg is taking a step back. So you have all those problems on offense, and then when you combine it with the fourth worst ERA in the league, third worst starting pitching, fourth worst bullpen, and a league leading 63 home runs allowed, which I, by the way, I
I
gotta
really
say,
Hold
love that they
on.
brought in
no,
the
no,
fourth.
no. Let me say this because I was right about something. I said they're gonna pull that wall in, and it's gonna be a fucking, you know, funplex in that park because it's gonna be home runs. They've let up the most home runs at home in the league this year. Just want to put that out there. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm
Home run
saying.
porch is living up to its name.
Like, they get on Yankee Stadium for being a, what do they call it? The
No, Yankee Stadium still works.
No,
I,
It's
mean,
still a
Wichita Texas
wiffle
is
ball
not
field.
better.
It's
Yankee
It's a
Stadium
wiffle
is
ball
still
field,
worse.
Ty. Don't even go there with
I
it.
know.
Actually, no. If we want to be honest, Sacramento's a wiffle ball field this
Yeah.
year. Have you seen those games?
But yeah, like there's a lot of contributing factors. Um, John, how would you like to approach this? You take the reins and tell me how you want to approach this dissection of your team.
I will put it this way. I am sad.
I'm up.
I am very sad. The injury bug has shredded this clubhouse. The amount of pain that I experience with my eyeballs every night is frustrating to say the least, because there's not much we can do about it. Uh, I'm just want to go down our IL list right now, and this is only for major leaguers, by the way. This is not even for uh, our minors, which also have injuries. I'm gonna give their latest update as well. Jordan Westberg,
He
on the
got
IL,
setback.
hamstring, no timetable. Gary Sanchez, wrist inflammation, no timetable. Andrew Kittredge, arthroscopic knee surgery,
That doesn't sound good.
rehab
That's
assignment.
That's a couple months.
Cody Podite, sorry,
OT?
shoulder inflammation, no timetable. Tyler Wells, elbow surgery, internal brace,
Sound like you're reading the graduation honors list.
no timetable. Kyle Bradish, Tommy John surgery, questionable for the entire 2025 season.
If they're playing this bad, he's not going to play at all.
Grayson Rodriguez, elbow inflammation, no timetable. Albert Suarez, shoulder inflammation, no timetable. Colton Cowser, fractured thumb, expected to return late May or even early June. Yeah, there's been no other reports.
Was he? He hasn't played this year, has he?
He played game one
for a bit.
Okay, because I was trying to think. Because that was the same thumb that he injured in the playoffs, right, or whatever.
No,
hand.
Different.
Oh, wasn't
different
it?
hand.
Okay.
But he slid into first and broke his thumb.
Oh, right. That's right.
Opening day.
Yeah, I got to jog my memory a little bit. I forgot about that. Yeah, because I was like, wow, a lot of their injuries. I remember these guys coming into the season was like, hey, they'll be back in like May, June, July, and it's like, oh yeah, now they're questionable for the season. It's like, ouch.
Yep. Also, runners in scoring position has been an issue, a big issue. You guys can delve into that because I don't need to beat that dead horse.
I did.
Our pitching. We had replacements such as Trevor Rogers or even Chase McDermott, who we just got back, and then they got hurt. So the replacements for the replacements are who we started the season with. And I just want to say, Tomoyuki Sagano, you are a godsend to this team. Thank you.
I thought about saying it as a bright spot, but the pitching is so bad. It's like you can't talk anything about the starting pitching and be happy.
Well, my whole argument.
Can you focus on the glaring starting pitcher problem? There's one glaring starting pitcher.
Well,
he's in the bullpen.
Beat that dead horse on principle. I'm not going to stop you.
One more injury away from him not being in the bullpen anymore.
All right, so then let's talk about Kyle Gibson.
So listen, okay, and I still can't even remember if this made the final cut of our Orioles video to start the season, but I had a lot of questions about Charlie Morton, okay, and I'm not saying I expected a 41-year-old to go out there and have a 2 ERA, but dear Christ, I mean, it is not good. And I'm not gonna. I really am not gonna beat a dead horse on that aspect, but
Boo.
it's just like, yes, they have all these injuries. Burns was kind of out of their control, right? Like they gave him an
They
offer.
offered him more money and he chose to leave.
Like-
we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, he wanted to go home. He wanted to be in
like so
Arizona.
I can't even get mad at them for that. I wish that they had done better getting, like, Kyle Gibson, Charlie Morton, like, get those guys out. We were talking about this on our previous episode, and this was going to bring up, like, a guy like Andrew Heaney was out there for them to pick up, who could have been like a good 4 or 5 starter for them, who's had a nice year for the Pirates. There was other guys out there, and they kind of decided to go with Charlie Morton, who, again, 41 years old. Kyle Gibson was a late addition because of the injuries, but it just feels like they could have went other directions, and now they're really paying the price.
I think here's the thing is that they had contingencies, they had plans for these, as I called them, replacements, and that was a bit disrespectful in the sense of they are still major leaguers, where they had guys who before they got hurt would have gotten you to a certain point in the season, into July, where Bradish could have come back, and then you have a big three of Grayson, Eflin, and Kyle Bradish. You were hoping that Tomoyuki Sagano could pan out. You were hoping that Cade Povich can take that next step, and I still think he can. I think he's just still going through growing pains. The thing is it's just that the guys who they thought were going to sub in got hurt, as well as the guys who are your stars. So you're essentially left with the C squad. It's hard
Yeah.
to say they did it to themselves when in reality they didn't. Injuries happened, and then they were left with who they were left with.
Yeah, I mean, I again, and I can have some sentiment in that. It's just, to me, it just sucks because we talked about the Orioles, and I don't think it's off the table, but we had talked about the Orioles as like, oh, this is the next dynasty, like the way that they're building their team, this is the right way to do it.
It
Yada
still
yada
can
yada.
be.
No,
And
that's
for
what I'm saying.
whatever reason, they're just not producing.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, but we kind of talk about them in that sense, and then it's like they and I get injuries happen, but injuries happen for everybody, and it just felt like they could have done more this offseason.
But this bad?
They
It's
didn't
gone
have the
through
depth.
everyone.
They didn't quite have the depth, I think, going in compared to some other teams is the main thing, and it's showing. But that's because that was my concern going in about when I was even debating about them being last, was that they weren't that different to me on paper than they were last year, and in a starting pitching sense, because they were going to be starting the season with a bunch of guys hurt compared to how they were starting the previous season, that they were taking a step back given the caliber on the team. Obviously, the big blow was not having Burns on your team to start this year and instead having Charlie Morton and Sugano. But I mean,
By the way,
but
Burns
again,
is
it's
hurt as well.
yeah, Burns. Well, yeah, Burns just got hurt. I think it was for the Diamondbacks, or he just got back, one or the other.
Well, and Blake Snell got hurt. Let's see here. Max Fried's pitching out of his mind right now.
I'm not even talking about the big guys necessarily. This is just a situation of, like, part of me wants, this is probably too cynical to think, and so I really don't think this is the case, but part of me was wondering going into the season, was there at all a possibility the mindset was not to throw the season, but to just let it unfold with the young guys one last time before making more big moves? And that's because you had Bradish was hurt for majority of the season. Wells was going to be out for the season. You had so really you're banking on a lot of starting pitchers coming back as the season is going on. Like, taking the season to just kind of let those guys come back, trust in the young core to stay with it. And then next year, when everyone's back healthy, then you really take the stab at it again, even though you no longer would have Eflin because this is the last year of his contract. Even if that, regardless of whether you believe that or not, there is obviously at least not obviously, but there seems to have been, there was definitely a pull to bring back Burns and that didn't work out. But there were various veterans they could have tried, like you said earlier, Tyler and Andrew Heaney, to just bring in on 1 year deals, something to try to solidify the back end. And their two choices so far have been Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson. So it's just been really poor decisions in the end. I'm not necessarily saying I think Gibson's a bad one or that he is going to be as bad as he's been, but I think the Charlie Morton one was just a bad decision. I don't think that was a smart one to bring in from the get-go.
Yeah.
So I think that's just what it is right now is they had depth options they could have gone for, and they either waited too long or chose the wrong person. And so right now it's kind of biting them early in the season. But that all being said, and I'll get into this more in a bit, I'm still, believe it or not going to write out the O's.
Yeah. Like I said, I know the talent they have, and that's what was kind of disappointing from an outsider perspective of like, take a chance on a guy that's not 41 years old. And I don't mean to harp on it, but I didn't love Morton's, analytics coming into this year, and I really thought he was going to struggle, and he has. And, when there was, I guess, other options out there, I guess so. We'll get to your point in a second because I want to hear. My concern is actually, I don't know if I can count them out yet, but I am concerned about the stretch of their schedule because they had a couple of they had Detroit, the Yankees, and the Royals for a stretch. That's a really tough stretch, right? And they go through that. And at that point, I think they were only like 7 games under 500. And I was like, okay, like they can get back. They got Minnesota coming up, who at the time was 13-20, I believe. They had Minnesota. Yeah, they had Minnesota. They had
a 10-game win streak. They're on an 11-game win streak now.
Yeah, that helps when you play the Orioles, 7 times, 8 times out of those 10 games. But like
5.
Okay, I mean close enough. But like what I'm saying is coming into that May 6th game, I was like, all right, look, you got Minnesota 3 times, you got the Angels 3 times, you got Minnesota again, you got Washington. That's a stretch of 12, 13, whatever games right there that you can potentially get like 8, 7, 8, 9 wins, get yourself back into it. And what's happening is, the Twins are 10-0 in their last 10. It's because the Orioles are just really struggling with them. They take 2 out of 3 from the Angels, but they've lost. They're 2-8 in their last 10 besides those games. So they're just not getting that. They're just not able to like really get a grip right now. They got Minnesota again, then they got Washington, but then what concerns me is then they got teams like Milwaukee, Boston, St. Louis, who's been hot, coming up. And I just feel like this is kind of like their easier part of the schedule, and I just worry for them going forward. But Will, why do you have faith in them going forward?
I'm a big guy in players eventually leveling out to whatever their career trends have been or career norms. And right now, the Orioles are far from it with a lot of guys. I know this is a stretch that you could go back to July, definitely offensively, and say that it's just been holding steady for a while. But the talent on this team over the last few years has been so good that I just cannot believe that this team is going to be holding this same ability for the rest of the season. They're going to get better. They're going to improve. Rushman's going to get better, even if because of how low it averages now, he only ends up 250. Gunnar Henderson will hit over 20 and probably close to 30 home runs. It's going to work out, and they're going to get their pitching back as the season goes on. They just got Eflin back. They'll probably get Bradish partway through the season. And I think if the Orioles are about 500 by the All-Star break, they'll still be in a competitive spot because of the way that there's 3 wildcard teams. And I think you're going to have a lot of mid teams by the All-Star break. And then that's when they start breaking apart from one another. But the other thing is that every year, or at least most years, it feels like there's always that team that after the first 2 months of the season looks like they're out of it. And then suddenly something gets lit under them and then they just take off. For example, last year on this date, the Astros were 17-24. And of course, they came back and won a division last year. The Mets were 19-22. They had their OMG stretch. In 2022, the Mariners were 15-19 and of course went on to break their postseason drought. The 2021 Braves were 18-20 at this point, won the World Series, and there were various teams around 500 at this point. And I know the Phillies were even worse at the end of May in 22, and of course they made it to the World Series. The O situation, you look at it and say, yeah, they're a little bit worse because now they're 11 games under 500. But I mean, the Mets right now are the best team in the NL East, and they're up there among the best teams in baseball, top 3 record-wise. They have the 3rd worst average in the NL coming into today in runners in scoring position and 5th worst in the MLB. The Royals have the 4th worst average in the AL in runners in scoring position, and they won like 16 out of their last 20 to put themselves comfortably in 2nd place. Or 3rd place, I guess, with the Guardians and them fighting it out. But the point is that not much has to change drastically in the Orioles situation. Just some things need to start clicking. And arguably there could be signs that they are, in the sense that Kremer had a couple good games. Today wasn't the great Kramer. Fine. It's all right. Spell your name better.
It's spelled Kramer.
It's spelled Cremer. That's Kremer.
It
No,
is.
it's not spelled K.
Kremer.
The fact that it's not an A in the middle. English sucks. We all know. But he had a couple good games. Today wasn't horrible, but it wasn't ideal. You got Eflin back. Sugano's pitching great. So you already have a potential at least top 2, and if hopefully 3 that are okay. Gibson will get better because his track record is good enough that he's not going to be like Morton, whereas Morton's like 41 and on the way out. And offensively, like I said, if just a couple of those guys, especially at the top of the order, get a little better, Mountcastle could get his average to 250, or Adley Rutschman gets his average up to 250, and Henderson hits a couple more home runs. Suddenly, the pitching's a little better and they get a little more offense. They get a little bit of a hot stretch. Maybe in a span of 20 games, they go 15-5, and suddenly the Orioles are a 500 team again. And a lot of this seems like a thing of the past. But in the schedule that you just said they're playing, they have coming up for them, none of that scares me right now. The Brewers are mid. The Red Sox are struggling, especially with pitching. And the Cardinals just blew their win streak and really should have lost this game if not for the Aaron Nola throwing it.
Okay, so John, I'll ask you this question then. Do you think for the Orioles, the spark is going to be just kind of coming with time with, all right, these guys are going to get back to their averages, or is it going to take like a sweep of the Nationals coming up, or, you know, a hard-fought series win against Boston to really get this team back on track?
I think they have fought hard. I think they fought hard today. I think they fought hard last week. I think they fought hard. Have been fighting hard. The problem is they just haven't had any luck in that sense. So I think fighting hard is getting them so far. I think it will come around, and I still have faith in this team. I still have hope in this team. I still think that this can be one of the best teams in the AL, especially with an AL that really is, compared to the National League, how do I put this? The lesser of the two evils. So the reality of the situation is that I wouldn't say the Orioles are out of this one way or the other. I think, like I said, the injury bug has ransacked this entire clubhouse, and I think that in general it has hurt this team, obviously, but they're not out of it. And I think the talent that is on this team and the talent that these players have will turn this ship around and really take off, the 2025 season. And maybe Will's right. Maybe it's a thing of, hey, 2025 is going to be a struggle, but 2026, here we go. maybe it's that, but I'm not ready to write off this season. I'm still tuning into every single game. If you're an O's fan, you should be too, because there's something brewing here on the horizon that I really have faith in this team to have it turn around.
Yeah,
now
nine,
he's done reading the teleprompter.
9 games out of the division lead right now for the Orioles of May 14th. Kind of insane to think about, but
7 out of the wild card.
yes, plenty of time to turn it around. They have the capability. Got to see it from Adley. Got to see it from Gunner.
It's still early, right, Will?
So it's
It
still
is
early, baby.
Still early. This is the time at the end of May going into June where magic starts to happen.
I will say, I mean, Will's right. If they can get to around 500 by the All-Star break, we all know what can happen after the All-Star break.
Mhm.
So, they gotta get on track a little bit, and they're good. But, yeah, right now it's a little bit of a struggle in Birdland. We'll see if they can turn it around, though.